Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today I'm going to be doing my Week 1 2024 United Football League game picks. Now, I'm going to be giving my picks for every single game of the 2024 season, and today's video we're going to start off with Week 1, which has a couple huge matchups, including the, of course, champion versus championship match between the Renegades and the Stallions, which is one of the most hyped up spring football games in recent memory, as well as one between two teams that a lot of people are very curious about, the Showboats and Roughnecks, and a couple other games. Now, like I said in past videos, this is going to be a bit different than I did it the last 2 years. Instead of just kind of giving my thoughts on, the Fox Sports odds on whether I think it's going to be an over, under, spread, and all that, I'm actually going to be giving my exact game predictions for every game and also coincide that with overall betting picks. So without further ado, let's get started with Saturday's games. Now, the first game is between the Stallions and the Renegades. This is the champion versus champion match, and this is a pretty weird one. Now, naturally, this is all at the time I'm recording this. These lines are live. They'll change here and there. As of right now, the Stallions are a minus 3.5 point favorite, with the over-under being 42 points. And then, of course, the money line has the Stallions at minus 180 and the Renegades at plus 150. For those of you who don't know what that is, spread is naturally whatever the score is. If you bet the plus, they have a 3.5 edge versus a favorite has to win by more than the minus 3.5. And then, of course, the over-under is the total points scored. But without further ado, what is my prediction for this game? Well, the thing with this is that you have two teams that, let's just put it simply, one of them is much better on paper, and a lot of people have a lot more hype around them. The Renegades, the highest I've seen them on most people's power rankings is about like 3, and I had them a lot lower than that, and a lot of other people do as well. This is a team that if you're high on them, it's only because they are defending champions and not because of what their roster is currently, or it's because you're a huge fan of Bob Stoops. And the fact is, even though we don't know at the time of recording who the exact starters for the Stallions and whether or not they are going to end up doing the 2 QB system, the fact is on paper they are just a far superior roster. They will win this game, and I think this is going to be the single most lopsided game of the weekend. Yes, I know it's a bold take, but I think the champ versus champ game is going to have the largest margin of victory. And yes, it is only 10 points, but this is still the only game I don't have being a one-possession game, and that's simply because of the fact the Stallions are just such a better roster. They have a head coach that has been much more experienced in spring football. No offense to Stoops, who's a legend in his own right in college, but one guy has won back-to-back championships in spring football. One of them won one by barely making it to the playoffs. There's a big difference. The fact is, I think the Stallions win this game 24-14. I think whether or not, naturally, with the XFL extra point rules being in, the scores are going to be pretty weird sometimes. But I think all in all, we're going to see this end up being 24-14. I think the Stallions are able to probably get like 3 touchdowns, or they're going to get 2 but get a lot of field goals. Whereas I think the Renegades aren't going to be able to do as much damage. I expect them to either get really just 2 TDs and a couple 2 or 1 2-point conversion or 2 1-point conversions, or a touchdown, some form of extra points and all that. Like I said, it's also weird how it is, but basically any score can happen. So I do think this is going to be an under. I do think the Stallions cover the spread, and I think the Stallions naturally win, so they get the money line. The fact is that when I look at this, it's just, this is too obvious to not bet the Stallions or to not go with the Stallions. Yes, the upset could happen with the Renegades, but the fact is that, again, the Stallions are just a much better roster all in all. They have a much better group at almost every position. Not every, but almost all of them they are just much better at. And so it's hard to go against that type of team that's just that talented. And especially in Week 1 when the Stallions have been able to get W's, I'm going to give the edge to the Birmingham Stallions. Now the next game is the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Michigan Panthers, with the Battlehawks having the insane minus 6.5 point spread. The over-under is once again 42, and this time the Battlehawks are minus 305 in the money line to the Panthers 245. The fact is that I've seen some people say this is an upset alert game where the Panthers could win this. I don't know. At the end of the day, this is one of those where it's the team that has the better quarterback is the Battlehawks, the team that has the better wide receiver room is the Battlehawks. Now, the running back room and tight end room, you'd probably give the edge to the Panthers and the tight end, but definitely for the running back room. The defenses, honestly, they're pretty close. The fact is both defenses has some elite players, but the Panthers are a bit more in depth. So the people who say the Panthers can win this game, I don't actually think they're crazy because they actually match up decently well. They have a very decent and actually not even decent, a very good back end on their defense with their safeties and DBs, cornerbacks. The only issue is that, again, offense for offense, it's just that while the Panthers defense I do feel is better than the Battlehawks defense, the difference from the Panthers defense to the Battlehawks offense is much larger in a sense versus the Battlehawks defense to the Panthers offense. I think the Battlehawks defensive star players can do enough to disrupt the Panthers offense. That's why I think this is also going to be a pretty low-scoring game because of the fact of the matchups, and I think the Battlehawks win this 18-12. I do think the Panthers cover the spread. I think 6.5 is a bit crazy. Again, I do think this is an under. We've seen historically that unders do pretty well in Week 1, and minus 305 is naturally the money line I'm going to take with the Battlehawks. The fact is that when you look at it, it's just, again, it's very hard to go against the Battlehawks. Yes, the Panthers do match up surprisingly well to the Battlehawks, but the fact is that talent for talent is a big deal. And again, the question marks of the Panthers QB situation, we still don't know the starter for them either at the time of recording this video. And so whether it's Etling, whether it's EJ Perry, it's pretty tough to see anything else really happening in terms of giving a reason for the Panthers to win. Though if they do win, it's going to primarily be off West Hills doing a very good performance, or it's going to be Breland Speaks having like a 3-sack day. So again, if you think the Panthers will win this, I actually don't fault you. I think there is a good upset chance here, but I think the Battlehawks get the W. Now the next game we're going to look at is the DC Defenders versus San Antonio Brahmas. This is the first of the 2 Sunday games. The Defenders are minus 6 on the spread. The over-under is 44 this time, and the money line has the Defenders at minus 275 and the Brahmas at plus 225. This is one that is a bit skeptical. Here's the thing. I've seen a lot of people online seemingly just forget about how big a deal the Abram Smith injury is. I've seen a lot of people still put like the DC Defenders at like second or third best team in the league. No offense to you guys, but no. Abram Smith is a much bigger player and a much more important player than people realize. He is a huge player. Look, I know the Defenders are high in their other running backs. At the end of the day, Abram Smith was not the best running back in the XFL. He was clearly the best in the XFL. So when your only other guy that's better than you is like Mark Thompson, who himself is just insanely good, that shows how important you are. The fact that a lot of people don't even think Te'amu deserved Offensive Player of the Year and instead should have gone to his teammate Abram Smith, I actually think this is an upset. I think the Brahmas get the W. Look, I have the Brahmas lower in my power rankings because objectively they are a weaker team at the moment, but I think that they actually get this W. Here's why. We saw with the Gamblers last year what they were without Mark Thompson the first 2 weeks. That's going to be very much like the DC Defenders. And here's the big difference. The big difference is the Defenders don't have that incredible wide receiver room that the Gamblers had last year. Now, yes, their quarterback is much better than Kenji Bahar and Jordan Te'amu, but the fact is both those teams didn't have their star running back. Both of them had solid, at least the Defenders they say, solid backups, but not as good as the starter. Now, the Gamblers just looked nowhere near right, and it was a huge issue. Kenji Bahar had a ton of turnovers, mainly because of not having Mark Thompson. There's a chance Te'amu goes back to that 2022 Tampa Bay Bandits form where he's throwing a lot of interceptions. I think the Brahmas have a good shot to win this game 2014. Again, another lower scoring game, and that's mainly because of the fact that I think the Brahmas offense is a bit hampered by the decision to go with Chase Garbers at the quarterback. The fact is, even if you think he is objectively a better quarterback than Dormady has reps with Cody Latimer. That cannot be understated. So going with Garbers, I think, is going to hinder their offense early on because you're going to lack chemistry they would have had with Dormady as the starter. So I think they only put up 20 points. Now the Defenders, I think they only put up 14 because even though, yes, the DC Defenders are going against or have a good defense, I think the Brahmas can get 20 points, and I think the fact is that a Wade Phillips coach defense is going to show up enough to stop Te'amu and that receiver core that has not really gelled because they haven't really been here in the regular season in spring football. So Brahmas win. It's an under. Brahmas cover the spread. I think the +6 is even crazier than Michigan because of the fact Abram Smith is gone. People just don't seem to understand how big a deal that is. And this is proof of certain casual people just betting on a team saying, oh, the Defenders, I've heard of that team. They must be really good. Yes, they were last year, and the roster is really solid this year. But their two biggest weaknesses are their unproven receiver room and now running back. It's a very big deal. Brahmas win this game. Now, the next game, and the last one of the week, is the Memphis Showboats against the Houston Roughnecks at 3 p.m. This is one that a lot of people are very shocked at. Look, I've seen from online discourse that the Showboats very much are determined by if you actually know spring football or if you just think you do. If you know spring football, you know the Showboats are going to be a good team this year. If you think you know, but you don't actually know, you think the Showboats are terrible. I saw a meme on Instagram about how, having the Michigan Panthers as the joke team in the USL Conference, and someone said you try to sneak the Showboats in as a good team. That guy clearly does not know how good the Showboats are, at least on paper, on talent. But the fact is, the Roughnecks being a favorite, I'm not really shocked at that. Remember, a lot of these betting lines aren't necessarily which team is better, it's about what people are going to bet on. The Roughnecks are a much more name-brand team in recent memory over the Showboats. There are a lot of people that actually think this is the same Roughnecks team from last year and not the Gamblers, which is just crazy. But again, like we've talked about before, and I said a long time ago, it's a reason I did not want them to change the Gamblers' name because it creates confusion. The fact is that the Showboats should be the favorite, but they're not. This is one of those where the Roughnecks truly are the underdog even though they're the favorites. It's a weird thing, but it's true. The over-under is 41. It's the lowest over-under, which I'm really shocked at. And then the money line is minus 105 Showboats, minus 115 Roughnecks. Now the over-under, sure, it could be because of the fact that Mark Thompson is questionable with that knee sprain. We don't know for sure if he's going to play. And of course, the fact that Showboats have to gel. But I actually think this is going to be an over. I think this is the one game of the week that's an over, and I do think the Roughnecks get the W. I said it before, I think the Showboats are going to take a couple weeks to gel and get fully meshed together. They have a lot of pieces that have to gel. You have a running back coming from the Generals and Darius Victor. You have a receiver and tight end coming from the Breakers and Jay Adams and Safe Sherratt. You have a quarterback coming from the Stars and Case Cookus. You have Jerron Jones, your greatest offensive lineman on your team, or your best offensive lineman from your team that has been with the Bandits and Showboats. So a lot of this has to gel. And the defense, we still have to see exactly how it ends up playing. There's a lot of great players that got released for one reason or another. And even without Mark Thompson, I'm still thinking the Roughnecks win this. Now, I will say, without him, the score might be a bit lower. But what I expect to happen is the Roughnecks who take a very early on lead, and then the Showboats in the second half to come alive and justify me still having them above the Roughnecks in the power rankings next week. I'm not even joking. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that at the end of the first half, the Roughnecks are going to be up by like 15 points, maybe even 20. But then it's going to be like, probably like maybe 20 to like, 20 to like 3, 20 to 7. But then the Showboats are able to storm back in the second half and show that elite talent they have. But it'll be too little too late. Because the thing is, like I said with the defenders, except the difference is this team has played without Mark Thompson before. They know a lot better what to do and what not to do versus last year when they didn't have him those first 2 weeks, where it was like that, oh my God, we don't have Mark Thompson, what do we do? This time they're going to understand certain areas they failed at last year, and this is a big part of why they got rid of Kenji Bahar. He wasn't bad, but they saw what he did in that situation. Maybe Curtis Johnson doesn't like what he did in that situation, so get a quarterback. Maybe Garantano ends up being a lot better than we expect. I think the Roughnecks pull out this W. I think that even though they are the favorite, like I said, I think that this is an underdog team. I think the two underdogs win on Sunday. That's my opinion. And now, before we get to the very end of the video, naturally, the overall record screen is getting a total rework instead of it being just the spread over under a money line. I'm also adding perfect game betting predictions. This is when I get all three facets of the bet correct: money line, spread, and over under. Then the perfect team score prediction is when I predict a single team correct, whether it be the Showboats scoring exactly 20 points, whether it be the Brahmas scoring 20, something like that will get a perfect team score prediction. Now, if I get a perfect game score prediction, which naturally should almost never happen because of just how wild, football is even then in the NFL it's hard to do. That would be if I got both scores right for both teams correct. Naturally, not saying like if it ended 2014 but the Defenders won, that wouldn't count. If I get it perfectly correct, that'll go up as well. But of course, the spread over under money line are the W's and L's. That is the one that, if you're a betting person and you're watching this just for what my thoughts are on the betting picks, that's what you'll go to. But if you want to see exactly how I do in terms of predicting these things down below, that's how it is. And so that'll do it for this video. This has been Zom Fox. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified so we'll upload any videos. We're going back to what we used to do naturally. We're at least 3 videos a week. The power rankings on Tuesday, the week review on Thursday, or on Wednesday, my bad. And then Friday, we have the game picks. Now, I am hoping to do at least one extra video at least every other week. Naturally, heading into next week, we are going to have my week 1 or my opening week tier list video continue that I've done 2 times before, where I look at all the opening week games in spring football and add them to a tier list. So we'll be continuing that next week. So as always, make sure hit the bell and subscribe like I said before, and have a great night.